Hello, I'm Gavin Jeter with Ably, and today we're going to be talking about proactive versus reactive risk and how whack-a-mole and lightning bolts are involved. To my left is Dr. Shane Turner. He is a technical director and professional engineer with Ably. He's worked in Indonesia, in the United States, in Brunei, in Fiji, in Canada, in Australia, and in New Zealand. And to my right is Paul Durdin. He's also a technical director at Ably and a professional engineer who's worked in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, and in New Zealand. Proactive and reactive risk. Can you explain these to me, Paul?
Sure. So reactive, let's start with reactive. So reactive is where we look at historic crashes. So where have the crashes happened on the road network in the past? And a reactive approach basically looks to deliver treatments at locations where crashes have happened in the past with the view of preventing those same crashes from happening again in the future. In contrast, the proactive approach is entirely independent of crashes. So it brings together factors that are known to contribute to crashes. So it takes into account the road design, traffic volume, speed limits, roadside hazards, roadway alignment, all of those things, and it is typically applied at a whole of network level so that we can start to understand where the highest risk locations are and then address those first.
I see. And so what is meant by the reactive risk method?
Well, the reactive risk methods are the traditional methods we've used in road safety, and as Paul said, this is where crashes have occurred in the past. And in the past, we've tended to see crashes clustered a lot more at high-risk intersections, or at locations along routes, or on high-risk roads. But over time, as we've been successful in actually addressing crashes at these locations, they become a lot more spread out across the network. And so nowadays, particularly if you're focused on fatal and serious crashes like we are with the SAFE system, they can appear in the past like lightning bolts. And the fatal crashes move around from year to year. So it's quite difficult to target risk based on that historic crash record.
Interesting. So you can use those statistics, and how do you measure proactive risk?
So proactive risk, we can bring together a range of factors that the industry over time has identified as being associated with crash causation. Things like whether the road is divided or undivided, what sort of alignment, straight roads versus windy or tortuous roads, how many people are using the road, is it in a rural environment versus an urban environment, the presence of intersections, the nature of the roadside environment, so whether there's barrier or if there's a large drop-off, all of these factors can be combined to identify the highest risk locations.
Interesting. So tying this into a safe system approach, is there a preferred method for the safe system approach?
For the safe system approach, the proactive method is preferred because we are dealing generally with a focus on fatal and serious crashes, which are less rare crashes. And as I said before, they can appear like lightning bolts across the network. And often if you look at measures that have been made at these sites in the past, you may address the risk at those locations, but the crashes pop up, the fatal crashes pop up at other sites. So it's a bit like whack-a-mole. You knock one down here, and then the next fatality occurs somewhere else on the network. So really, the proactive method is better because we're looking at the underlying risks that are causing the crashes and focusing on that. And when you're trying to take a systemic approach, a network-wide approach, and you're trying to drive down fatalities and serious crashes across your network, you need to be using a proactive approach.
Nice. Well, thank you both. Did you have anything to add?
Oh, I did actually. I was just going to say we had a study from New Zealand in Auckland, which is our major city, 1.5 million people, and we looked at where fatal and serious crashes were occurring and where they had occurred in the 5 years prior to this. And what we found is that exactly what Shane said, a very large proportion of the crashes, the fatal and serious crashes, were occurring in locations where they hadn't occurred in the past. So more than 80% of fatal and serious crashes that occurred in 1 year had occurred at sites where it had no history of fatal or serious collisions in the previous 5 years. So that reinforces the proactive approach and the need to go down that, adopt that method.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Thank you very much for that conversation. If you'd like to learn more about proactive versus reactive risk or the safe system approach, visit ably.com.